For the longest time, I tried to break into the data industry but just did not know where to start. In fact, in January 2020, I was the least technical person ever. I did not know how to code, thought that I wasn't cut out for a job in tech, and honestly had no marketable skill. But I managed to turn things around, and by July 2020, I got my first internship in data analytics. This internship then turned into a full-time data science role, and I have now completely transitioned into the field of data science. In this video, I will be sharing with you the steps that I took to land my first internship in data analytics, and I will also be including chapters to this video, so feel free to skip to any section that you'd like. Okay, let's get into it. First, let's talk about what data analytics really is. Data analytics is exactly what it sounds like. You just take a bunch of data that is present in a company database or an Excel spreadsheet. You analyze this data and you present your findings to the business. The company will then make some very important decisions based on your analysis. Now, if you have no technical background at all, it is going to be a lot easier for you to get a job as a data analyst than it is a data scientist. This is because most data science jobs require you to have a master's degree or some kind of technical qualification in this subject, whereas the barrier of entry is just lower if you're trying to get a data analyst role. Also, most data science jobs require you to have a strong background in mathematics. Think linear algebra or calculus. It also requires you to know predictive modeling and machine learning, all of these things which are not prerequisites for a data analyst job. So if you have no prior technical experience, then it is going to be a lot easier for you to break into data analytics than it is data science. The first thing that I did was to learn SQL. SQL stands for Structured Query Language, and this is a language that allows you to communicate with databases. It lets you extract, transform, and analyze data that is present in databases. And this is one of the most in-demand technical skills in data analyst job listings. When I was first starting out, I took this course called SQL for Data Analysis. This is a free course on Udacity, and it will take you through the very basics of SQL and then build on top of your knowledge as you progress. So it then goes into more advanced concepts like window functions and subqueries. And one reason I'm recommending this course to you over thousands of other SQL courses on the internet is because this course is straight to the point. It teaches you just what you need to know to become a data analyst. So while other courses will cover concepts like ER diagrams or how to build a relational database, this course will teach you only what you need to know to become a data analyst. The second reason I really liked this course is because there are practice questions after every topic. So once you've learned a concept, it lets you apply everything that you've learned to solve a business use case. And I've always been a huge advocate for learning by doing, especially when it comes to something as complex as programming or learning to code. You learn so much more from practicing and solving problems than just endlessly consuming video content. So that's another reason I really liked this course. The second thing that I did was to learn a BI tool or a business intelligence tool. A BI tool allows you to transform raw data into a visual format like a dashboard or something that can be easily understood by other people. In simple terms, it helps you transform data into actionable insight. For example, look at this data set that comprises a bunch of company sales information. This raw data set in itself is in the form of a spreadsheet. It doesn't really mean much and it doesn't add much value to the business. But with a BI tool, you can take this data set and turn it into a dashboard that looks like this. A stakeholder can now easily filter this dashboard and look at sales trends across time periods, category, and location. And they can now use these trends to make business decisions pertaining to marketing, finance, and sales. Again, there's just so much to learn here. The fundamentals of data visualization, creating calculated fields, building dashboards, and it is so easy to get lost in the sea of resources available on the internet. So here's what you should do. Tableau and Power BI are two of the most popular BI tools in the market. And as of 2023, Tableau is in slightly higher demand than Power BI. So I'd recommend taking this Udemy course to learn Tableau. And by the end of this course, you will be able to transform raw data into an interactive Tableau dashboard that looks like this. After taking this course, decide if this is something that you'd like to learn more about. Because when it comes to data analytics, you have people who specialize in different things. So you have analysts whose only job is to build dashboards using a BI tool. After taking this course, if you realize that you're more of a creative person, that you enjoy the process of building dashboards, then by all means, go ahead and specialize in it. You can even become a Tableau certified specialist. I myself am more of a generalist, so I do a bit of everything. And when it comes to dashboarding, I know just enough to turn raw data into a functional dashboard. Finally, I learned Python programming. I'm going to say that this is an optional step, so if your only goal is to become a data analyst as quickly as possible, then feel free to skip this step because it is going to take a lot of time for you to learn to code. But if you do want a competitive edge over other data analysts, if you have the time to spare, and if you ultimately want to transition into a field like data science in the future, then it definitely is worth putting in the time to learn to code. In my case, for example, learning to code has definitely paid off. I have landed multiple freelance jobs. I've also transitioned into the field of data science, none of which would have been possible if I didn't know how to code. But again, this completely depends on your circumstances. And if your only goal is to get a job as an analyst as quickly as possible, then it might be wise to skip this step. Okay, so if you do want to learn Python, then you can take Free Code Camp's Python for Beginners course. This is a 4-hour-long tutorial that will teach you the very basics of Python programming. And then you can follow that up with practice questions on sites like LeetCode and HackerRank. I will also leave a more detailed guide in the description. This is a step-by-step approach as to how you can learn to code in Python, so do check that out after this video in case you're interested. Okay. Here comes the interesting part. If I could start over in 2023, what would I do differently? I would go back and learn Excel. When I joined my first company as an intern, I was expected to conduct so much of my analysis in Excel. And that is because Python and SQL are just overkill for so many companies. A lot of them just store their data in Excel spreadsheets. And decision makers, stakeholders, a lot of them would rather see data presented in an Excel spreadsheet than a fancy dashboard. So if you're in a time crunch, you don't have the time to learn SQL, don't have the time to learn a BI tool, don't have the time to learn Python, that's okay. Just learn Excel. I know that this might sound like strange advice, but once you get really good at analyzing data with Excel, many companies are going to be willing to hire you for entry-level data analyst roles. And of course, these jobs may not pay as well as the ones that require Python or SQL expertise, but that's okay. Because you've already got your foot in the door. You've already got your first job, and you can always upskill and go from there. One more thing I would do differently if I was starting over in 2023 is that I would also learn ChatGPT and generative AI. This is because ChatGPT is a game changer for data analysts. It can automate Excel workflows. It can perform data analytics tasks in minutes. The advanced data analysis plugin, for example, that's within the GPT-4 model, it can write Python code, create visualizations, and even generate SQL queries in just seconds. If you don't use these tools, if you don't learn ChatGPT for data analysis, then you're going to be at a disadvantage as compared to other analysts who already are leveraging these AI tools. Okay, let's do a quick recap. If you're in a time crunch, if your only goal is to get a data analyst job as quickly as possible, then at the very least, you need to learn Excel as well as a generative AI tool like ChatGPT for data analysis. And if you have some more bandwidth, if you can spend around 6 months to a year learning data analysis, then I would suggest learning Excel, a BI tool, SQL, ChatGPT, and optionally Python. Again, I'm listing Python as optional, but it really is a great tool to add to your skill set. It paves the way to more advanced fields like data science, and it will also allow you to negotiate for higher salaries. So if you do have the time and bandwidth to spare, then I would definitely recommend learning Python. Okay, so once you've learned the skills that I've listed, you can go ahead and start applying to jobs. I would recommend applying once you feel like you're about 60 to 70% prepared. Please don't wait until you have perfected every topic, because that is never going to happen, not for the next couple of years. So the moment you feel like you're 60 to 70% prepared, just go ahead and start applying to jobs. I myself started applying to internships instead of full-time jobs because internships have a lower barrier of entry. They will teach you on the job, so they don't have too many expectations of you. You're essentially getting paid lower than minimum wage so that they can teach you while you work for them. When I first started applying to internships, I faced multiple rejections. Many companies didn't even bother to get back to me, and a lot of them just sent me these generic rejection emails, not even explaining why they were rejecting me. But my chances of success dramatically increased when I followed these 3 steps. So first, I went onto job listings and I searched for every data related role I could find. And then I shortlisted companies that I wanted to work for and roles that I found interesting. And then I looked for the recruiters behind these job listings and I sent them personalized emails. I explained why I was the right fit for their company. I sent them a link to some of my projects that I'd worked on. I was also writing articles around data science and data analytics at this time, so I sent them links to some of my articles. My chances of success dramatically improved after I did this. In fact, here is an email that I sent to a company that I really wanted to work with at that time. And within just days after sending this email, the recruiter responded. They scheduled an interview with me, and I ended up getting the job and working with this company as an intern for the next couple of months. Another way for you to increase your chances of getting hired is to create portfolio projects. Now, I know that you've probably heard this advice 1,000 times over. When I was first starting out, I created 2 big portfolio projects before I got my first data analyst role. In the first project, I analyzed gender disparity in Hollywood using publicly available data. And in my second project, I analyzed government data to understand whether Black people were more likely to get pulled over while driving. The reason I chose these topics is because I've always been fascinated by the use of data in solving social issues. I also created a dashboard and wrote some articles around these projects, and I included links to my work on both my resume and my portfolio. I strongly believe that these projects are what led to me getting my first data analyst internship. I will also be leaving a link to a more detailed guide in the description that will teach you how you can get started with building your first portfolio project, so do check that out if you're interested. And yeah, those were the steps that I took to become a data analyst in 6 months in 2020, and what I would do if I could start over in 2023. That's all for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, do like it. Also, do subscribe to my channel. I will be posting more content on data, AI, and programming in the next couple of weeks. So stay tuned for that if that's something you're interested in.